It's Get Out of Here. I'm Warren Levinson. Statistically speaking, you are not going to die of the new coronavirus. But according to some forecasts, you will know someone who does, or someone who knows someone who does. It's important to note here that there is much we don't know about the virus named COVID-19, including how far it can spread. Even the calculations of how lethal it is, based on relatively little information. What is clear is how much the coronavirus has upended travel and the way we think about travel. Wuhan, a Chinese city of more than 11 million, is locked down. Airlines are putting off flights to all of China. International conferences are being canceled or postponed. Travelers returning from some areas face quarantine on return. The cruise industry is particularly hard hit. There are the headlines from the Diamond Princess in Japan. Virgin Atlantic, which is just getting into the cruise business, has postponed the first visit of its first ship to New York, even though Virgin reports there are no health concerns on board. We've avoided talking about the new virus till now because the story is changing too fast for a weekly podcast, but we really can't ignore it anymore. So we've brought in Joanna Reed, a travel writer whose latest piece, published in Fodor's Travel in late January and updated repeatedly since, is called Should You Change Your Travel Plans Due to the Coronavirus? So Joanna Reed, when did it start to become clear that this virus was going to be a problem, and particularly a problem for people traveling?
I think sort of mid to late January, the people's awareness started to go up about this virus. But I think that a lot of that was social media and clickbait headlines spreading information that made people perhaps more worried at the time than they should have been, in my opinion.
So now we're looking at travel restrictions of various sorts in various countries all around the world. Can we just, take a quick look at a few of them? Obviously, we can't be comprehensive, but what are we seeing now?
So this changes almost on a daily basis, it seems. But right now, the hotspots for the coronavirus are China, Hong Kong, Iran, Italy, and I think those are sort of the main ones at the moment. And some countries are imposing travel bans, essentially, on people coming from those areas. And the United States is one of those countries. But many other countries are not. And my country, Canada, has not instituted any travel bans.
Now, when there's an unknown disease and throwing up a national travel barrier seems to be off at the top of your head a kind of logical response, but it really isn't, is it?
Correct. I know that there's a lot of people, I see a lot of things on social media, people saying we should just close the borders. But the studies have shown, and, the studies are done by the experts, not like, regular people like you and me. But studies have shown that travel bans don't stop disease. They might slow it down by a couple days. And what they do is encourage people to lie and hide their symptoms because people want to get where they want to go no matter what.
Right, exactly. I mean, we saw this during the Ebola scare of a few years ago. When you started banning things, then people just didn't go to the doctor, or they told people a story about something that wasn't quite true.
Exactly. So you could have people hiding symptoms, which makes tracking diseases and then the public health situation even more difficult than it already is.
So if you're trying to travel now, should you be changing your travel plans?
Okay, well, first of all, I want to say that I think you should trust the advice of organizations like the WHO rather than people like me, a freelance writer. I mean, I have studied this a lot. I have been writing and updating a number of articles on the issue. But I really, really want to point people to the experts, and that in the world is the World Health Organization. But using the WHO's advice and then my own analysis, I would say you should not travel to one of the hot spots at the moment. And that doesn't mean, for instance, the whole country of Italy. It does mean northern Italy. But otherwise, I don't think people should be curtailing their travel if they are, a normal traveler. So meaning that they're a healthy person. They're not elderly because more elderly people are being severely affected by the coronavirus than non-older people. There is one caveat I'd like to add, though, is that So when there is a big outbreak of disease, you don't have to only worry about yourself. You have to worry about the society that you live in. So that could mean things like if you have a friend or a relative who has another underlying health condition, you need to make sure that you protect them. We also need to make sure that we protect other vulnerable populations. So I'm thinking of, like a couple of years ago, I was in Namibia, and I visited the Himba people, who are semi-nomadic people. They live in huts without running water. So they are unable to protect themselves as well as you or I from a disease like the coronavirus because they can't wash their hands. So I would not be traveling to visit a group of people like that. We also have an obligation to think about like how our public health systems are working with an influx of diseases. So everything that we can do to minimize disease in ourselves helps minimize it amongst other people. And the bottom line is I don't think people should be curtailing their travel, but they should be a lot more careful about washing their hands, not touching their face, and the other advice that the WHO is giving.
Right. Let's go through those precautions just real briefly. It's, yes, a lot of hand washing. Also, I guess keeping a little more social distance than you might otherwise in regular life as well. Yes.
If you see a person who's coughing and sneezing, well, first of all, that person, it would be very nice if they would stay home with their illness. But if you see a person who's coughing and sneezing, staying about a meter, that's the same as a yard, a meter or two away from them is wise. And that's because if they cough or sneeze, the virus can, in theory, travel about a meter away and, in theory, land on you. And you could, touch it and have it go into your eyes, nose, or mouth, which is generally how viruses enter our bodies. So, yes, you should be trying to keep a little bit of social distance. So, don't kiss people hello anymore. Keep your distance from them. Wash your hands as often as you can. And I'm reminding people that next time you go wash your hands, see how long you really wash your hands for, because the WHO's advice is to wash them for a good 20 seconds and then rinse. And most of us are not even spending near that much time washing our hands.
Now, this virus originated in China, specifically in the city of Wuhan. Does that mean if you're traveling that you would expect not to go to China at all?
That is currently the advice of organizations like the WHO and the CDC, is to not go to China at all, even though most of the cases in China are concentrated in and around Wuhan as opposed to some of the other many, many cities in that country.
And for a lot of people, I guess, your travel plans are being changed for you even if you don't want to change them, because we're getting the kind of sense of some airlines are canceling flights anyway.
Yeah, and they're canceling flights because of reduced demand, because many people are in a wait-and-see mode to figure out what's happening. And they're canceling flights because some governments are instituting travel bans.
And you also, I guess, have to think about, okay, I want to go and the flights are still on and I'm going, but then you have to turn around and worry about what happens when I get back or when I try to get back.
Yes. So you're going to be allowed back into your own country if you're a citizen of that country, and in many cases if you're a permanent resident as well, no matter where you've been. You might be put into quarantine. You might be asked to self-isolate for about 2 weeks at home. So that could make, going to work rather difficult depending on what your job is. And for people who don't have paid sick leave, it could affect them really, really significantly. If you have other travel plans, you need to figure out what is going to happen or what is likely to happen. So as an example, I was supposed to be in India right now, but my flight was through Taiwan. So the company that I was traveling with said, well, anyone going through any part of China, including Hong Kong and Macau and Taiwan, was no longer allowed on their trip. So my trip was canceled. Part of it was a bit of a blessing in disguise because I'm supposed to be going to Mexico in a few days. And I was worried that Mexico might institute the same kind of travel ban that the United States has right now, which would mean that I wouldn't be allowed to enter the country. Mexico has not done that. Mexico and Canada are pretty much following the same kind of protocols.
So you worried some that it was going to throw off the trip to Mexico, but now you're still going.
Correct.
Okay. Well, that's good. So let's talk about some of these cancellations that we're seeing of big events. The Tokyo Marathon, they said, okay, just the elite runners coming. What is that about, and how common is that? How many other examples of stuff like that do we see happening now?
I see a lot more of that being reported. They're trying to keep large congregations of people, just basically not have it happen, because if you're within close proximity to sick people, you, in theory, are more likely to get sick. Europe has, many countries in Europe had put in place cancellations on large congregations of people. Italy is one of those countries. I'm just updating an article right now about what's going on in Europe, so I'm starting to look into what's happening there. There are many large corporations that are canceling business trips for their staff. Conferences worldwide are being put on hold, at least for the moment, if not outright canceled. So the world is certainly reacting to this. I think it's a lot about, if this company or this country is doing it, maybe I should be too. Otherwise, my employees or my customers or my citizens are going to be worried. But it's not all scientifically sound.
Right. Is there a sense of overreaction here in some way?
The World Health Organization, in almost every message they send out, is cautioning people not to overreact. And that means countries as well as individuals. We just had a news report here. I live in Vancouver, Canada, a news report on the weekend that our Costco's and most of our grocery stores are sold out of toilet paper because people are stocking up because they're in a panic mode. And they interviewed one woman who said, well, I saw everyone else buying toilet paper, so I thought I should too. So people are scared, and when you're scared, we don't always react logically. But if we all can just take a deep breath and think about, what does the science say we should and should not be doing, I think we'd all be better off.
We're certainly seeing, a rise in conversations regarding xenophobia here in the United States and as well in Europe, and I'm just wondering how much this feeds that.
Very much so. I mean, that's happening here in Canada as well, is that if you are an Asian person and you sneeze on the subway, people will at least look at you funny, if not step away. It's really sad. I mean, this disease is not targeting people from specific ethnicities. Diseases don't do that.
Right. Yeah. It just feels crazy. Has reporting this story changed your own personal hygiene habits?
Well, I'm not a germaphobe, but I have to say I've always been pretty germ conscious. In my previous life, I was a policy executive with the Government of Canada, including working at Health Canada and including on things like food safety and the pandemic influenza file. So I've always been pretty conscious about, washing my hands a lot. And I'm paying more attention. I'm really trying to break that habit of touching my face with my hands, but it's a hard habit to break.
Right. Apparently we do that something like 43 times a minute or something in regular life.
Lot.
It really is a lot. And you have some advice, I know in the piece that you wrote for voters to be aware of germs that might lurk on your phone or on a restaurant menu. Yes.
I can't remember exactly how long germs can live on hard surfaces like that, but it's a day or two at least, and they can live on like a cloth napkin as well. So a personal pet peeve of mine is when a server in a really fancy restaurant, when I step away from the table, comes over and folds my napkin up nicely for me and then does it to a dozen other people at other tables, spreading all of our germs amongst all those people. The best advice is to wash your hands as often as you can. And soap and water has been proven to be more effective than hand sanitizer.
Right, exactly. And some of those things, some of the antibacterial stuff that comes with certain unpleasant chemical disinfectants anyway.
That is possible as well. And an antibacterial isn't going to kill a virus. So
Exactly.
They're two different bugs.
Right. It's Get Out of Here, the AP Travel Podcast. I'm Warren Levinson. More on travel and the coronavirus after a break. It's Get Out of Here. We're talking with travel writer Joanna Reid about travel and the coronavirus. So let's talk about cruise lines, because they are really struggling right now with what to do with this. And it's, the problem is contagion. The problem is a lot of people crowded in together, and the problem is really fear as well.
Yeah, 100%. I agree.
So if you have a cruise coming up and the cruise is going ahead, you should be comfortable. You should not be comfortable. You should check with whom exactly.
I would give the same advice to someone contemplating a cruise as contemplating any other travel. If you are a person who is older, who has another underlying health condition, who should have been afraid of catching the flu, yes, you should be afraid of coronavirus. But precautions for flu as you do for coronavirus. If you are a healthy person and aware of the precautions, washing your hands, face, etc., I would take a cruise right now.
And in terms of the lethality of this particular strain of virus, we don't really know. I mean, they're banding around the number that it will kill 2%, but it's such a small sample size that's really kind of unsettled, isn't it?
It is really early to tell. What the experts say that the early numbers can actually be a lot higher than what we would see, say, from a year from now, because at the beginning, people don't know what the disease is, and they don't take the same precautions as we are now because we know that the disease is circulating around the world. So that number could most likely go down. There's also a theory that there's a whole bunch of people walking around with coronavirus that don't even know it, that are exhibiting very mild or no symptoms at all. So there could be a lot more cases in the world, and then that mortality rate would drop further. And that is actually similar statistics to the flu. Supposedly 14% of people who have the seasonal flu exhibit no symptoms and are still contagious.
So, Joanna Reid, let's talk a little bit about you. How did you come to this? How did you go from government food safety official to travel writer?
Well, I wasn't a food safety official. I worked in policy on a variety of different files. I decided to take early retirement to pursue my travel or my retirement dream of being a travel writer and photographer. And strangely, with the coronavirus, the two worlds collided so that my travel experience and my government policy experience blended together, and I seem to be writing a number of articles on the coronavirus.
You're looking forward to seeing the back of writing this, or are there a lot more fascinating aspects you're planning on digging into?
Well, I prefer to write about travel destinations, and particularly about responsible tourism. But I do find the coronavirus rather an interesting issue, so I'm glad to be able to keep up to date on it.
And where are you going in Mexico?
To Huatulco.
Oh, and that's where exactly?
In Oaxaca, so on the southwest coast.
Well, we hope you have a really nice trip. Really enjoy yourself. Thanks so much for talking with us.
Thank you.
Joanna Reid is a freelance travel writer and former Canadian government official. You can find her work on her website, Travel Eater, all one word, traveleater.net. Her latest piece, appearing in Fodor's Travel, is Should You Change Your Travel Plans Due to the Coronavirus? She joined us from her home in Vancouver, British Columbia. And now, my favorite trip. It's Antarctica again. The AP's Deepti Hajela told us about her trip to the southernmost continent a few weeks ago. Now Susan Portnoy joins us to say more. Portnoy is an award-winning travel photographer whose work can be seen at her website, The Insatiable Traveler. She's just recently back from a trip to Antarctica and the Falkland Islands on one of the first voyages of a cruise ship with an innovative new design.
Oh, my God. It was unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. The otherworldliness of the landscapes, first of all, is breathtaking. And then, of course, you see these amazing animals I've seen a million times on Nat Geo documentaries and everything else. And there's fur seals coming up to your boat to look at you, and penguins. And, I mean, it was crazy.
You also went to the Falkland Islands.
Yes.
So now we know of the Falkland Islands because of the Britain-Argentina War, but that's the 1980s, so I guess a lot of people don't know about that either. But, when we also know that sheep outnumber people, so what's it like to be in the Falklands?
Well, we were actually there only for a day. We were on Bleecker Island, and we were going to see a whole rookery of rockhopper penguins. So we walked across many, many, many sheep herd pastures of a family farm that owned the whole island. And, the rockhopper penguins are really unique and so special. And they really do hop. Good name.
Okay, that's good. And now the ship you were on, this is a new kind of cruise ship, or using a new kind of system. How did that work, and what did we learn about it?
Absolutely. It was the Greg Mortimer, which is the new boat for Aurora Expeditions. And Aurora Expeditions is out of Australia. And what they did is they commissioned a boat to be built that would have the Ulstein Expo. And what it is almost like a beak-like front end that has been used on commercial vessels for a long time, and because it kind of slices through the water. So a lot of times what you see when you see little videos of the Drake Passage and the water's flying everywhere and it's rough seas, you see the bow go up and then slam down. And it's called the slamming effect, which is not only dangerous for the boat itself, but also for people on board.
I can imagine. So
what happens with the new Ulstein bow is that it's so much smoother. Are you still going up? Yes. Can you still get seasick? Yes. But you're not being slammed around. It's sort of it's a very smooth up and down, side to side. So it's much more comfortable.
I can hear seasoned travelers already saying, "Yeah, I had to go through that. Why don't you? You travelers today, you're just too soft."
It's so true. There is a rite of passage going through the Drake Passage. And the first day I was a little queasy. And when I went downstairs to just get a little toast and something to drink, the people there were like, "Oh, this is nothing, what I did last year, blah, 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 blah." So you don't want to go through it in the moment, but then you kind of think, oh, my goodness. But we actually did have 27-foot waves from the Falklands to Argentina. And it was like being in a very smooth fun house for about 12 hours.
Susan Portnoy is an award-winning travel photographer and writer. You can see her work at theinsatiabletraveler.com. And that's the show. Get Out of Here is a production of the Associated Press in partnership with Westwood One, produced under the supervision of Nikessa Moody and Peter Costanzo. I'm Warren Levinson. We'll see you next time.